Greetings ladies and gentlemen, this is Lord Mon, and on today's Hearthstone tutorial we'll be looking at the Shaman class. Remembering this is just an overview of what the Shaman can do, and this isn't necessarily the most effective deck out there, but feel free to copy my deck if you want, but it's more to showcase some of what they can do. So who's the Shaman? Well, Shaman destroys his enemies using the elements and all manner of pretty powerful creatures, to be honest. First of all, his hero power summons a random totem for 2 mana. It can be one of 4 totems. The totem can have taunt or +1 spell damage or an attack. But yeah, one of 4 totems. They're all sort of either 0 attack or 1 attack for that one totem or 2 health. The other thing that the Shaman has is a thing called Overload. Basically it means the spell is super powerful for what it does, but the overload reduces your mana next turn. I guess that's the way you can say it. So this one costs me 1 to do 3 damage, but next turn I get 1 less mana, and overload does stack. Don't do what I originally did and just refuse to use overload. Overload is really good. It lets you use a super powerful spell now and pay for it later, so hopefully you start getting the momentum of the game and the overload won't matter too much. So that's what overload is, and do not be afraid of it. Alright, so some cards that I like. I want to like Ancestral Healing, but yeah. Healing minions, like, it seems a little bit situational. The giving it the taunt is good, but sort of looks like a late game card to me, and you know, if the enemy mage, or whatever, if you're versing a mage, they don't care how much health something's got, they could just polymorph it, so yeah, I don't know about Ancestral Healing. Earthshock is one that I really didn't like at the start, but it has really grown on me because a lot of people are running Divine Shield, so this will get rid of the Divine Shield and deal damage to the minion, which if they've got Divine Shield it will normally kill it, so Earthshock is one of the few direct counters to Divine Shield, or at least the most troublesome Divine Shield creatures. So I'm not running it yet, but I really want to make space for this. Forked Lightning, again I don't run it, but 2 damage to 2 enemy minions for 1 is amazing. You're probably not going to have much of a next turn at Overload 2, depending on when you use it, but you know, if it wins you the game, well, that's probably not going to win you the game. Deal 1 damage to an enemy and freeze it. Yeah, I can see the appeal, but yeah. Now, Lightning Bolts is something that I really like. It deals with nearly any first turn play, so if your opponent plays... What if they're a priest and they play a cleric that's 1/3 and has a really good effect, you can just destroy it with this and go on your merry way. And, you know, late game, it's still alright, especially if you've got spell damage totems out. Rockbiter, great weapon. You can cast it on your character and, you know, swing at a creature. Again, really good against those 1/3 mana worms or clerics that priests can get, or mage. So yeah, that's really good. If you can cast it on something with Wind Fury, get double attacks for, you know, obviously you get 6 damage out of this rather than just the 3. But don't feel that you have to play it on a Wind Fury, it's just really nice if you can. Oh, I guess, what is Wind Fury? Wind Fury is the ability to attack twice with a minion, and Shaman gets more of it than anyone else. As you can see, my creature, the Wind Speaker here, he gives a creature Wind Fury, so yeah, it can be really, really handy, especially with like Rockbiter and attack buffs. Attack buffs make Wind Fury really good. I don't play Dust Devil, stay away from him because he's Overload 2, and he's only got 1 health, so if you're versing a mage, this guy gets destroyed and you basically ruin your next turn. Stormforged Axe, I am running 1 of these. It's a pretty good weapon. The 2 damage will deal with most early game stuff. It has 3 durability, which is pretty good. 2 mana, it's pretty cheap, and an overload of 1. And overload 1 doesn't matter too much. So it can deal with, hopefully, 3 enemy cards, so it's pretty good. I'm only running 1 because I'm trialing the Doom Hammer, which I'll get to later, which is another weapon, so use my sort of weapon slot. I really want to like this Wind Fury card, but if you have no cards on the field, well, in your hand, and you just draw this, you can be in a lot of trouble. This is like a win more card. I prefer the creature Wind Speaker because that gives me a creature as well as Wind Fury, just for 2 more mana. It's basically a 2 mana 3/3 creature if you view it like that. So I like it more than Wind Fury. Not to say that Wind Fury is terrible, but yeah, I just like Wind Speaker more. Speaking of cards that go really well with Wind Fury, Flame Tongue Totem attached adjacent minions have +2 attack. So with Wind Fury, this effectively becomes +4 attack. Yeah. You just have to be a little bit careful when you play this, because your opponent will be gunning for this totem. Basically, they'll try to destroy it as quick as they can, and you don't want that to happen. If you got some taunt out or anything, then you can place this next to taunt. Little trick, if you put a bunch of weak creatures, like let's say to the right of it, if you attack with the one adjacent and it dies, then they'll all shuffle next to it, so you can actually give a long Congo line of, you know, 4 or so creatures +2 attack if you keep swinging at stuff and they keep dying and they keep shuffling along. So that's one way to use it really well, but it's a really good card. Can't say enough about Feral Spirits. I should probably create another one. Basically 3 mana, you get 2/3 wolves with taunt. Overload 2, so your next turn's probably not going to be too flash, but 1 card that gives you 2/3 spirit wolves with taunt. 2/3s. Yeah, it's just really good. It's really handy. You can really take advantage of the early game, and hopefully that will result in you winning. Hex, great free-to-play card, probably one of the best. Transform enemy minion into a 0/1 frog with taunt. Now what you want to do is you want to hold on to this card, probably till around turn 8 to turn 10. If your enemy plays a huge legendary, specifically like Rag or Tyrion, or any of those really big ones, this will just destroy it. Well, not destroy it, it'll turn it into a 0/1 frog, but it gets rid of the problem really, really quickly. And you don't want to burn this on, you know, a Shield Master or anything. Well, you could if it's going to make you win the game, but yeah, you don't want to burn this. You want to save it till much later. The reason why it's 3 mana is so you can cast this and something else. It's not meant to really be used on turn 3. So that's a mistake I see a few people make, but yeah, this is amazing. It's pretty much an auto-include in every deck because it's just huge. Especially, and it's, you know, yeah, you don't really have to search for it. I think you get it from getting to level 10. You might even start with it. Great card. I like Lava Burst, but I haven't found a place for it really yet. Lightning Storm, really good AoE for 3. Overload 2, yeah, you know, you can see there's a lot of overload, and you can wind up making it so your next turn just doesn't exist. But, you know, if that's the price you pay for seizing control this turn, then, you know, it's generally alright. But I like Lightning Storm. Cool thing is, if you get the spell damage totems, this rapidly becomes obscene. Do notice that it's got random damage on it, so, you know, don't rely on it doing 3 damage to something, rely on it doing 2, and the 3 can be a pleasant surprise. Manatide Totem. Now this one is one you will have to craft, just for 100 dust. It is amazing. It's a card draw effect on a creature, happens at the end of every turn, so as soon as you play this, you'll wind up getting a card, so it replaces itself. If you can keep this alive, it will draw a ludicrous amount of cards. I've had these guys draw 10 cards for me throughout a game, so it's just amazing. That's all there is to it. If you can stay on the offensive, or if you run a bit of taunt, you can just keep this guy. It will pretty much force your opponent to deal with him. Unbound Elemental, as you may have noticed, you should be playing a bunch of Overload, not Overlord. So you play a few of these, and this guy will get really big, really quick. I've seen people polymorph this guy, I've seen people use fireballs on this guy. Big creature destroying cards to get rid of this guy, and seeing there's just a 3 mana and he's, you know, pretty humble at the start, it's really good to get rid of some of those big cards so your late game creatures don't get attacked. So definitely worth looking at if you're playing any amount of Overload, and you should be playing Overload with this deck. Windspeaker, sometimes he's not so good, most of the times he's pretty darn good. Wind Fury is amazing, and at worst he's 4 mana for a 3/3, which, you know, is kind of bad, but it's not, you know, it's better than the other Wind Fury because at least you get a creature. The Doom Hammer. It is an epic, so you're probably not going to get this for a little while, but it basically does the same thing as the other axe does, except more of it. So 2 damage with 8 durability, has Wind Fury and Overload 2. So it's a mega weapon for clearing out little things. Bloodlust is one of the biggest hit or miss cards. Give your minions +3 attack this turn. If you've got 7 minions, this card is obscene, even if you've got a couple minions, or a couple minions with Wind Fury. So this is like, it is a really good card. It has won me games. I won't say it's lost me games. Well, there's been times when I top deck into this with nothing on my board, and I just get wrecked. But this can make you win unexpectedly. This is the win your opponent can't really predict, or if they are playing as if you always have Bloodlust in your hand, they'll be making terrible plays. So this is a really, really good card. And yes, sometimes it misses, like, you know, you draw it without anything on the field, but if you can play it on even just 3 guys, or a person with a character with Wind Fury, really, really good. Earth Elemental, it's another epic, so yeah, okay. But it's really worth getting. Look, 5 mana for 7 attack, 8 health, and taunt. The Overload is 3, but really dropping this guy out at turn 5, it is so difficult for your opponent to deal with. This is, well, it's probably closer to a 6 or 7 mana creature, or the taunt pushes it up. I don't know the exact costing, but if you can get this guy out on turn 5, he really hurts people. And if you can give him Wind Fury and all that nastiness, he can wind up doing a lot of damage. Fire Elemental, he's one of the guys you get just from leveling up. Solid stats and a really good battle cry. Deal 3 damage, so it can get rid of any sort of problem creature. If you can get him Wind Fury, and he can double attack for, you know, 12 damage. So is one for really upping the stakes of the game. Farsight, draw a card, that card costs 3 less. Yeah, I don't really like this one. I see people play it, but I don't see what they see in it. I just grabbed some Lepinome for some early game. Yeah, not much to say about that. But what I am running is Gadgetan Auctioneer. So whenever I cast a spell, I draw a card. So this guy is sort of another hit and miss card, but it's basically, if I haven't drawn into a lot of my spells and I can play him about mid-game, you'll notice a lot of my, well, yeah, a lot of my spells, I got a few 1 costs, 3 costs, a bunch of 3 costs, and basically, because Overload is there, the spells are cheaper than what they normally would be, so you can play a bunch of them in 1 turn, and if you've played with Auctioneer a while, he tends not to survive too many turns, so it's really good to get extra card draw. So Auctioneer combined with Mana Tide Totem, you draw a lot of cards with this deck when it is going pretty well. General attack buffs can work, like Raid Leader. There's something to be said for getting a bunch of totems out and then Raid Leader making them into weapons. But I swapped Raid Leader out for Flame Tongue pretty much as soon as I got it. But they both do a similar thing, so you can stack a deck with attack increasing things. Same deal with, where are you? Storming Champion. You can make your totems into combat totems, which is pretty amusing. But yeah, it's just the sort of efficiencies, not necessarily optimal. Other things, you know, you staple harvest golems and stuff like that. But yeah, I've been doing pretty well with the deck I have here. So I'll go and talk about a couple of legendaries. Alright, Alakir, the Windlord. He is better than I thought. And I'm glad that I saw him in being played, because originally when I saw this guy, I was like 8 cost for 3 attack, 5 health, and nearly every effect in the game. This guy is just gonna get silenced and then be a really expensive 3/5. Now I have seen that that is not necessarily the case. He has charge, so he does something when he comes out, and Wind Fury. I think he's the only charge Wind Fury creature in the game, so there's something to be said for that. He's got Divine Shield, which is kind of cool, and Taunt. Yeah, okay, the Taunt's useful, but I don't know why that's there. Alright, so the cool thing with this guy is he snowballs really quickly. If you can get any sort of attack boost on him via your Flame Tongue totems, or your Bloodlust, or your Rock Biter, if you jump into 6 attack or more, with his Wind Fury and charge, he can do a lot of damage really quickly. Or, because of his Divine Shield, you drop a couple attack buffs at him, he swings at their strongest creature, so if it's a Druid with a massive taunt, not taking any damage because the Divine Shield bursts, and then he can swing at their face. So he is a lot better than what I thought he was. It's really worth giving him a try, especially if you pull him. A little bit combo-y, but, the combo works really well if you can get it happening. So the main thing is he's got Wind Fury and charge, which no one else really has. So that's pretty cool. As for other legends, well, actually, while this guy is pretty much a staple in a lot of things, where is he? He's a staple in a lot of decks, and I try to avoid the obvious staples, but Blood Mage Thalnos does work pretty well here. You are casting some early game spells, so the extra spell damage is pretty cool. The draw a card is pretty cool. Basically, if you can fit spell damage in, it works. Shaman doesn't need as much as other decks because you can get your totems, but he's a nice little include. Alright, here's a crazy idea, or a legend. Onyxia. So, half decent stats, 8-8. Summon a bunch of 1-1 whelps until your side of the battlefield is full. Alright, so this is a little bit of a crazy strat. So you play Onyxia out, flood your field, and then next turn, play all manner of things like Bloodlust. Or things like that. I don't know, it's a little bit crazy, but I see the potential. I'm only mentioning it because there's not that many other neutral legends out there that I haven't talked about that aren't staple. So yeah, Onyxia might find a home in Shaman with a few buffs. Note, it does sort of require a little bit of luck, because if your opponent has an AoE effect, then they could wipe out all your whelps before you get to do this thing. But if you manage to play Bloodlust on a reasonable amount of whelps, that could be game pretty quickly. So I thought I'd mention that there. I don't know where else Onyxia comfortably sits. So those are the two legends that I would recommend. Alright, let's play a game with Shaman, and I'll show you how it works.